We have a very interesting panel that will be hosted by Josh STEIMLE, who is an author and founder and CEO of a full-service digital marketing agency called MWI. And the title of the panel is Brands and Technology, What is the Perfect Mix? So Josh, panel, stage is yours. Thank you.
All right, guys, come on up here. I'm not up here by myself. This isn't a panel of just me. Once again, my name is Josh STEIMLE. I'm the author of Chief Marketing Officers at Work. I run a digital marketing agency called MWI. We have offices in the US, Hong Kong, China, the UK. And we've got a great panel up here this morning. We're going to be talking about the future of video marketing. There's nothing more valuable than knowing the future. If you know the future, you can act today and take the right steps. If all of us had known where Bitcoin was going to be today, we would have acted differently 2 months ago, right? So today we're going to talk about the future of marketing, and what you learn today might change what you do today, which might change where you end up, where your business is 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 5 years from now. So let's dive in. First of all, let's do some introductions. David, we already met you, but tell us a little bit more about yourself. Where are you from? What do you do?
Thanks, Josh. Again, I'm David KULCZAR, the Senior Offering Manager for IBM Watson Media. I flew in yesterday from Austin, Texas. Yeah, that's basically it. I've been with IBM for a very long time. I started in 2000, so 20 years almost.
All right, let's go down the line. Have everybody do a 1-minute introduction.
Sure. So hi, I'm OREN, OREN HARNEVO. I'm co-founder and CEO of Eyeview. We personalize video advertising. We help advertisers take their one ad that you usually see on TV and digitally create hundreds of thousands to match different individuals. I'm Israeli. I haven't recognized by the accent and the name yet. But companies in the US have about kind of 150 employees across the US and the UK.
Good morning. My name is Lee CERTILMAN. I'm the president of Nardy Honda Smithtown. We're one of the largest Honda automobile dealers in the United States. I'm also the chairman of the board of the Greater New York Automobile Dealers Association. We own and operate the New York International Auto Show, which is on every April at the Javits Center in New York City.
Pleasure to see you all. My name is SHALIT. I'm head of business development at Aniview, a company founded by Alon Carmel, the founder of JDate. We're a full video solution for video advertising, including an ad server, content player, advertising player, CMS, OTT solution, and more. We will discuss for later.
Great. Now we're going to dive into the future of marketing in just a moment, but first question for all of you is, what are technologies related to video marketing that you see companies not taking advantage of already? They're already out there, it's available, but you're surprised that people are not taking advantage of it yet. David, let's start with you and go down their line.
Sure, and I don't think it's going to be a surprise my answer here, because I think I just talked about it to some degree, but definitely artificial intelligence, we're at the forefront of it. It's new, it's growing quickly, it's maturing quickly, and I think the advertising space is ripe to start taking advantage of it now, and I really think it's starting to happen. I definitely see that with the customers I talk to, but we're at that point of adoption where I think within 2 years you're going to see that every company has got on board.
Drum roll. Just to add a little bit of emphasis to your point there, yeah.
Yeah, I'll kind of continue on the same trend of artificial intelligence, talk a little bit about the creative of video. I think brands and marketers are still not really taking, really not using the intelligence behind what's driving the creative in videos and understanding to drive different messages or different storylines for different individuals goes to some AI, but also just thinking about the right creative for the right person.
I don't really have a very strong opinion on this because I'll defer to more of the experts here, but I will say that all sales is driven by emotion. So the idea that artificial intelligence can tap into the emotion of why somebody watches something to motivate them to do something is a very compelling argument and probably one of the swiftest ways that we can accelerate sales.
So I want to discuss a very painful point that we saw last year. A lot of ad servers that are using VPates and VAS that were very aggressive really affected the user behavior. I think something that we're going towards in 2018, and more platforms are starting to realize that this is where we need to go to, is the RTB connections, RTB communication. So this is what we will see in 2018.
All right. So don't get too comfortable, Chen, because we'll start back the other way with the next question. But for the audience, for your companies where you're working right now, how many of you would say that your companies are not investing in video at the level that you would think that they should be investing? Like they're doing no video or they're doing very minimal video. Anybody want to volunteer? So all of you are heavily invested in video, is that right? You're producing tons of content, you're using all the data, right? Okay, great. Now, so Chen, let's start with you. When you think about these technologies that you see people not using out there, that they should be using, that are available, why is it that companies are not investing in these technologies? And how does a company know when is the right moment to dive in and try something versus wait to see how the market shakes out?
I think something that is very important in our industry is to always keep up to date. And I think that the biggest problem in our industry is that there are a lot of companies that are staying with a specific product and trying to keep going with it for another year, and this industry is changing all the time. You have to use new solutions, new products, you have to expand. And I think this is the hardest part, to be up to date and to really know what's out there and how to reach it.
And who else wants to dive in and answer that question?
I'll touch on it. I think it really goes to what Lee said. The trick to any kind of adoption is find something that resonates and drives revenue. So if I can tap into emotion and show a real use case that drives value for your business, then you're going to invest in it and you're going to continue to try to find new ways to expand that out. So it ultimately becomes just a matter of finding something very tangible that has a really clear ROI and then duplicating, replicating that, and then expanding from there.
I think, you know, again, it's like when people who go for comfort food, they're not going really for the food, they're going for the comfort. And so if you tap into that emotion, you can actually pull a sale through instead of having to push it through.
Yeah, I think another thing when you think about AI or creative or personalization or any technology that comes in, you have to remember that video, and speaking about advertising, because it's kind of what I know more, it's an industry that's been doing the same thing on TV for about 80, 90 years. So it's very hard to go to a marketer and its agency and the creative agency and start having them use something they don't know, especially when it's probably their biggest revenue asset. And it's very hard to get all your data in place and try new things and find the right vendor. So there's also an ecosystem of how to get video all the way to the consumer that's changing it is extremely hard, very kind of tough ecosystem to change. So driving innovation just takes time.
So let's dive into the future. Let's talk about 2018, since this is what the conference is about, right? Video trends for 2018. So David, starting with you, what do you see on the horizon? What are the trends coming up in 2018 that are new, and which the companies that jump on that innovation first are going to have an advantage?
So it's pretty clear, I think, with video that almost everybody that monetizes off of video does it in a very clear way. It's all through advertising. So the trick is going to be figuring out what's the right mix of artificial intelligence or virtual reality to drive video usage and to push advertising. So where I think it really is going to impact my business within IBM is when we look at brand detection and automated brand detection, and when we look at dark data and video, how do I then apply that in a specific way to drive more ad views? So, and I can do that in a few ways by understanding either the emotional content in a video or a specific tag that I know might resonate with my audience. I can start to do things like dynamic ad insertion in a specific way, where I know I'm hitting an interest for a specific viewer. Or on the flip side, I could start take content that's very appropriate for advertisers directly to those advertisers to try to get to drive ad dollars in that way. It really does all come down to ad revenue within the video industry, and I think the tools we're building today are capable now to push that, and it's just a matter of getting that adoption and starting to grow that curve, get over the top of the hill there.
Oren, what about you? Predictions for 2018, what's going to be big?
Well, I think if we were talking kind of 2020 and more, I'll probably I think AI and everything we want to make is going to come, but industry is a lot slower than what we want it to be. And when I talk a lot with marketers, and I don't know if it's a new trend, but it's getting bigger and it's becoming more and more important. It's a lot about ad fraud, brand safety, the latest election and post-election, the current political climate. A lot of brands have a lot of worries. They don't want to be in certain sites. They don't want to be correlated to specific content. And we've been getting, as a video vendor, a lot of worries. And I think 2018, the CMO of P&G last year, I guess till this year in 2017, had a big speech that says how much he is worried about the ad industry and how many inventory is fraudulent and how can he feels that there's safety around that. So we've been seeing that a lot coming into this year. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting trends coming from AI and others in the upcoming years, but I think brands in video ad revenue are still so worried about where things are running, but that's still kind of a main thing that's being discussed.
So Lee, you're in a little bit of a different situation than the other three guys here because they're vendors. They're up here and they're trying to push people to adopt new technologies. You're actually using video technology right now. What do you see firsthand on the front lines using the technology? What are the trends that you see that dealers, auto dealers in your industry are going to be using next year?
Particularly for us, and we operate in a very competitive market of about 20 million people in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area. We have to cut through a lot of clutter to keep our viewers' interests. And one of the ways that we do it is not through programmatic, but through relevancy. We engage companies that, like Eyeview, that would allow the message to be communicated directly to the customer. In the automobile industry, if it's going to be families, we might want to push a minivan or an SUV, and if it's going to be a younger demo, it might want to be a Civic or an Accord. And to be able to tailor those ads, both online video and through broadcast addressable, allows us to increase the relevancy of the message to the consumer, which is more likely to engage that consumer to take an action, which in our case is to drive traffic to the 61 dealers that we represent. So essentially cutting through the clutter in a world where the choices for viewing are way too many enables us to have a little bit more efficiency and also accountability for the dollars. Because I don't have to tell anybody that newspaper and radio advertising has gone down. Television broadcast advertising has come down a little bit because we're able to track things on digital, and that just makes it a more sensible buy from a client point of view.
With the dealers that you're working with that are in your network, is it hard to get them to adapt to video marketing, or are they fully bought in at this point?
We're all so desperate to have accountability for the dollars that we spend, because for so many years we've just literally thrown money against the wall and hoped that it worked. Digital has done that has given us an increase dramatically because we are able to account for it. We're able to actually spend the dollar, attract the customer, and follow that customer through mobile all the way to the dealership, and even compete if they're at a competing dealership to know that they're there and send an ad for Honda while they're standing on a Toyota lot.
Makes so much sense. You wonder why anybody's using yellow pages or newspapers or magazines or TV, and yet still.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Chen, what about you? For 2018, what trends are you looking at?
So I think it started at late 2017, but it will increase in 2018. I want to talk about ads.text. And I know a lot of traders won't agree with me, but I think that ads.text is the best thing that happened to our industry.
I will agree with you.
I think that the chain must be shortened. I think the publishers deserve more. And this is something that is very important for us in Aniview. And I think maybe ads.text won't solve the problem, but it will enhance the process of giving the publishers more and really connect between the advertiser and the publisher.
So David, diving into AI, you're really at the forefront of AI. If there was one thing you wanted the audience to take away today when it comes to AI and how companies can monetize their brand and use AI for video marketing in the future, what would that one point be?
I mean, honestly, I think the point is that I learn new stuff every day with it. The applications are endless, and every time I have these kinds of conversations at groups like this, gatherings like this, I always learn something new. So I think, truthfully, it's such a flexible technology that pretty much any business challenge can benefit in some way from artificial intelligence. It's just a matter of us looking at it and being creative.
And Chen, you work with advertising a lot. What are some of the trends you see when it comes to brands working together with publishers, and how can they take advantage of the new technologies to get more value out of that relationship?
So if you look at the Israeli market that we run on all the biggest sites, you can see that the connection between the advertiser and the publishers is, you can see that a fashion store will just ring to one of the CEOs of Ynet, this is a very big newspaper in Israel, and will say, listen, I saw this ad, I want it to be different, and something that is becoming a very big problem worldwide is that the agency or the brand that has the campaign don't really know where the campaign is being running and what is he paying for. And I think this is something that is very important for advertisers to know where they spend their budgets, to see that they really get the best spots and best placements for their ads, and that they could really reach the right users for their products.
Mm-hmm. It's easy to listen to all this technology, and we get so absorbed in the online world that we almost live there these days. It's our first home. And yet with this advertising, we have to think about driving the online experience to offline, and especially for you, Lee, with these dealerships, people still have to come in and pick up that car. It's a physical product. How do you transition people from the video marketing, from the online experience, to that offline buying experience?
Well, again, we're able to track them for the most part. If they started online, we're able to at least keep them engaged all the way through the process until they do come to the dealership. But it's a combination of media efforts. A lot of it does originate online because that's where people are spending most of their time. So we're just literally, technology is going to be the answer for trying to do that.
When people come into a dealership, how do you find out where there's that gap there, right? Because once they come into the dealership, you don't know how to match them up with the data necessarily. Do you take steps to match them up with their online data and make that connection to say, hey, this visitor went through these steps online, then they came into the dealership, and then we connected the dots and we know who that is?
Yeah, you are able to, especially if they're joining your Wi-Fi network at the dealership, but you are actually able to track them from their IP address and know that they did come to the dealership. That's how we're able to close the loop. So we know that if we engage them at the beginning, that we're able to track them through their buying cycle all the way to the dealership. In fact, there are a few companies that do that. I think Eyeview has capabilities for doing something similar.
Yeah, I think, well, there's some vendors out there, and they're getting more and more. Snapchat just bought one of them, which is Place, that is able to connect from an ad view. So every time someone views an ad, they know which device, and then when they get to the dealer or to wherever, now it's even getting so smart as in a Best Buy, you can literally know which product the person was looking at, which aisle they were at, and those are vendors that we all use, that we use in our campaigns to exactly measure who saw our ad and how many people converted from seeing the ad to actually arriving at the dealership.
And Josh, it's not just in the automobile industry. In the retail industry in the US, there are a few companies that will track customers to a department store. They'll know when they came in, they'll know which departments they went through into the department store, for those that are still shopping retail and not on Amazon. And they'll be able to match the likelihood that they'll end up in another part of the department store. So if you're shopping for suits and you end up in hardware, they can see the relevancy of these two things, and they can actually change the store layout or change their behaviors to increase the likelihood of a sale.
Early is becoming Minority Report. Some people think this is creepy. I think it's awesome. I think it's great that we can track people like this. But so Oren, a lot of this is coming down to personalization, and it's interesting to note that 200 years ago, everything was one-to-one marketing. Everything was personal. Then we came into this era with radio and broadcast TV where everything was mass marketing, and now we're coming back to that one-to-one marketing, but at scale. Talk a little bit more about where you see this personalization going with video marketing in the future.
Yeah, well, that's very true of the trends. And when you think about digital, and it's kind of connecting to the conversation from before, we think about display and banners and search, and we've been personalizing search ever since it started. When someone searched for a specific keyword, you get a search message that's relevant to that keyword, and in display as well. But video is a lot harder. You know, you have a 30-second ad or a 15-second ad, so technology is a lot more complicated. And sometimes you have to convince advertisers why do they need to spend so much more money to personalize. And I would say it used to be harder, but now that there are technology to close the loop, as Lee was saying, now we're able to go to an advertiser and say we will commit to show you at least 3 times the increase in performance if you personalize. And it's kind of a lot easier to drive more revenue once there's actual proof. So. We've done a very interesting campaign, and even if we're talking about Honda, so as Lee was saying, they're trying to drive more people obviously into the dealerships, and the amount of new cars bought every year is not really changing, so you're really not trying to get people to buy new cars, you're trying to get a market share from Toyota in this example. So if we have to personalize ads and think about every difference between Toyota and Honda and put it in the ad, it's kind of hard to sell it because it's going to cost more, but because we can literally connect all the investment into the increasing ROI in how people come to the store, we can actually create ads that compare Honda to Toyota to Lexus or whatever. So I think that trend is starting to grow really well in online video, and it's going to come to TV pretty soon as well.
So let's look into the longer future, beyond 2018, 5–10 years down the road. What are the most interesting trends that you see that you think are going to be big in the farther future? David, let's start with you.
Sure. I kind of, again, following on a little bit, it goes to the next step of personalization. We talk a lot about, within IBM, about getting to a point where you can have an audience of one, where you're almost creating content real time for a specific person. So if I know your likes, I know your interests, I know your location, I know the weather, I know the recent news trends, I could potentially create video for you garnered to exactly what your mood, emotion, time, state of mind is. It's to the point where I could say, create me something that's going to help me sleep tonight. I think we'll get there in the next few years.
Oren, what about you? Long-term trends.
Yeah, I think that this is the trend of where advertising will go. It's going to take time. I think what's going to help drive that is the trend that we talked about before, is the whole idea of closing the loop. So it's hard to get brands and marketers to invest in this unless they see a result. So the trend of being able to close the loop either by mobile or desktop, and if it's through credit card information or purchases on the site or CRM systems, increased performance measurement, I think, is a trend that's becoming, closing the loop between online to offline is going to drive this to go faster.
Lee?
It's autonomy. Autonomous cars, self-driving cars are going to create an environment that's going to be video rich. When you have we have laws probably worldwide where there's no texting and no driving. People want to be texting, they need to be driving. And when they don't drive anymore, they're going to have an environment where they can be doing other things, and that's going to be a very video-rich environment for advertisers and companies to be able to target individuals in hundreds of different ways. So autonomous driving is really going to change, I think, not just the rules of driving, but also lifestyles.
I love how you brought what you do together with what this panel's about, with the video marketing and such. So here's a question for you. How soon do you think it will be illegal for human beings to drive cars?
You'll be rolling your wheelchair in it. No, it's probably level 5 driving, which is the standardization of a car that will drive itself under any conditions on any road, is still probably 25 years away. I think there's just a lot of work that goes into it. But I think making it illegal for humans to drive is probably going to be a lot longer than we think. I think people want to drive, but also there are circumstances when they need to be driving. So autonomy is going to be a function coming into the cars over the next, I would say, 7 or 8 years, where you'll select it like you do cruise control, and then the cars will drive all by themselves, and then the self-driving cars are going to enable subscription services and change the idea of transportation, whether it's smaller buses or FedEx trucks that deliver packages on their own. But it will be some time before it will be illegal or non-standard for people to drive cars.
I can't wait for that day, though. I would much rather be watching video while I'm in the car than actually driving the car. I know some people love to drive cars, but I'm not one of them. I'm just like, just get me there. It's all about functionality.
Yeah, me too.
So Chen, what about you? What's your long-term predictions for the video marketing industry?
So I think 5 to 10 years in our video industry is a lot. A lot will change. A lot of new formats will be. I'm not sure if we will have video ads, if it will be in a different format. But I do know that the publisher will gain their power back. I think today publishers are struggling with a lot of problems, from CDN costs to servers to content management tools, and because of that they're going to a lot of big organizations like YouTube, like Google, and I think the publishers want their power back. They want to get their revenue back, and I think they will look for new solutions that will bring them the full package in one place with lower costs.
So we have a little bit of extra time here, so I'm going to ask one more question to the panel, which is, where do you see social media going in video? Video's really gotten hot lately on social media. Facebook's really pushing Facebook Live. LinkedIn released their video feature in the last few months, and they're really pushing that. We see that YouTube is becoming more of a social network. They're talking about adding a feed to YouTube, so it's going to look more like Facebook. It all seems to be coming together to this one place. Where do you think that's going, and how does that impact marketers in the future? David, got an opinion there?
Sure, and I think it's related to the broader conversation that we've been having. Social is just another input. It's another way to personalize, to make content very specific to what you care and are interested in. So it's just another way for me as a content creator to understand how my message is resonating with a group, and it's another way for me as a content viewer to understand or to help give information about exactly what I want to see to improve that personalization we've been talking about.
Anyone else want to jump in next?
I think social video is really exploding, and not now, a year ago, 2 years, and it's continuing to grow like crazy. I think I heard a crazy stat, like mobile video consumption, ad consumption on mobile is about 97% YouTube plus Facebook. So it's really conquering, and it is the same in a way. For a consumer, it doesn't matter if he sees an ad on, or he sees content on Facebook or on Netflix, so I think it is in a way the same, but we're really kind of in the hands of Google and Facebook and maybe Snapchat. They haven't really started yet, so it's a lot of walled gardens around those platforms. But it's definitely where video is consumed. I think the next biggest trend, we kind of touched on social, is connected TV, which is where TV is going to go. Probably, I don't know if it's that much social, but if you're looking at the future of TV, that's also a very interesting trend.
Lee or Chen, you want to chime in?
I'll just tell from a budgetary point of view of try Honda, for the $40 million that we spend each year, our social media budget and digital online video budget has doubled. So that's both a function of the increased amount of money that we're spending, but also the concentration of media towards social and video. It's a very large part of our strategy and our budget.
We're talking a lot lately about the new living room, where the television is closed, the sofa is background, and the family is sitting, everybody's watching on his own device. And I really think this is where we're going towards, personalized content, and we see more and more content companies. The outstream world was built because we didn't have enough video content to see and watch, and I think last year it's shifted. We see more content on sites, on social, and this is where it will progress.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for your insights. I hope everybody got some information from that you can take back and use in your business today to start preparing for the future, or to take advantage of technologies that are already out there. Thank you so much for all your insights, everyone.
Thank you.